Hello and welcome to week 17. I might have mentioned it last week that week 17 would be a longer sequence. So currently, if I look at the list, it's like 42 asanas, which is a good thing because now you can at least look back and say that you know 42 asanas to be able to practice it. Though there will be an introduction of a new one, a new forward extension, which is Triangamukha Paschimottanasana. It's one of those names I love to say because it's a little difficult to say. Trianga, which means three limbs. Mukha, that means you're looking down. Paschimottanasana, that is stretching the back area of the body. So it's a variation of a forward extension where one leg is held in Virasana and the rest is similar to Janushirshasana or Paschimottanasana, where we extend and lift the spine and go forward from the pelvis. So yeah, that would be a new addition in terms of the asanas you have learned so far. Otherwise, it would be revisiting a lot of the asanas you have already studied. So let's begin. It would be a bit of a challenge if you do keep up with me and finish the whole sequence because it is a long sequence. So let us begin. Place your fingertips alongside the support of what you're seated at. Lift and lengthen the waistline. Take your outer shoulders back, drawing your shoulder blades into the back, rolling the inner shoulders down. Maintain the lift and length of your spine. Keep the throat soft, the facial muscles relaxed, and bring the palms of the hand and let it rest at the center of your heart. Let's close our eyes and become aware of the natural flow of breath and paying our respects to this lineage of yoga that runs through, that we are able to practice and gain benefits from till today. So take a deep, slow, long inhale. Yogena chitasya padena vacham malam sharirasya chavaidakenam yopa karotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankachakra sidharinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Harihi Om. Take another deep, slow, long inhale and exhale. Gently lowering your head down. Release the hands, place them back on your legs. Lifting your head up. Open your eyes. As always, we start in Samasthiti. So center yourself on the mat. I keep my props away. I'm going to already prepare myself by keeping some blocks close by. I might also need a belt, so I'm going to get a belt. But let us begin in Samasthiti. So stand with your big toes touching. It makes a lot of difference when we make an effort to touch the inner necks of the big toes. Spread the bottom of the feet. Shift your weight into the heels. Take your attention to the outer thighs, drawing them closer. Move your attention to the inner groins, moving them back, spreading the back of the thighs, lifting the inner knees, lifting the shins. Taking the outer shoulders back, moving from the top of the shoulders, down your elbows, down into the fingertips, standing tall, standing straight, looking straight ahead. From here, we move to Urdhva Hastasana. So stretch your arms straight in front of you, extend your elbows, extend your arms, and with an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms up. Focus your attention on the feet. Press your feet firmly down, hug your outer shins in, outer hips in. Lift your waistline, lift the side chest, lift the inner arms, elbows, extend all the way up. Maintain the lift and length of your spine. See if you can take your upper arms back behind you. Urdhva Hastasana. Then take your hands down. Urdhva Baddhanguliyasana. Interlace your hands. Turn the palms out. Keep your outer elbows in. Spread through the palms of the hand. With an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms up again. Focus your attention. Bring your outer upper arms in. Inner elbows straight. Rolling the outer shoulders forward. Moving the inner shoulders back. Lifting both sides of the armpit chest. Keep your weight heavy on the heels. Tighten by bringing the outer hips in, moving the inner thighs back, lifting the inner ankles, inner knees. Bring your hands down. Change the interlace. Once more, turning the palms out. Spread through the palms of the hand. Bring your outer elbows in. Keep your elbow joints firm. Keep the extension as you stretch and lengthen your arms up. Use your upper arms to lift the side chest. Focus your attention on bringing the outer shoulders in, inner shoulders back. Straighten your elbows. Take your attention back to the bottom of the feet. See that the weight is heavy on the heels. The frontal thighs remain back. The outer hips in. The buttocks moving into the body as you lengthen the whole spine up. Lift the whole torso up and away from the pelvis. Now bring your hands down. We're going for Gomukhasana. If you need a belt, you can use a belt. I'll just show you how to use it on one side. So you can hold the belt and portion of your belt on your right hand and reach your arm up. Focus on, again, bringing the upper arms close. Move the arm back as far as you can. Bend your elbow. Once you're there in the pose, again, stretch from the armpits up into the elbows. Take your left hand, swinging the hand from inside. Grab the belt. As you're here in the pose, you're working on moving your left shoulder back, drawing from the left shoulder down to the elbow, and working from the elbow up to see if you can grip your fingers. Otherwise, you're holding the belt, working your hands closer towards each other with the help of the belt. See that you're not tilting in any way. Keep your weight heavy on the heels. Now, if you don't need a belt, then you can simply also work with the arms. So I just keep the belt a little bit on the side. Stand with your feet together. Reach your left arm up. Stretch up. Extend. Bend the arm. Reaching back. Taking your right hand from below. Interlacing the hands or gripping the fingers. Stretching your upper arm. Making sure the arm stays in line with the shoulders. Not moving the head or chest. Keep your spine equally extending upward. Take your attention to your right shoulder, moving it back. Stretch from the left armpit to the left elbow, moving the arm back, opening the shoulders. Now release and take the hands down. So again, we're just preparing the arms, the chest, the shoulders. And these are simple basic movements, but they need to be repeated once more to create that openness of the chest. So the next thing we're going to go for is Paschima Namaskarasana Hastasana. That means you're going to hold the hands from behind, as we have learned this before. And as we hold the hands here, so you can again grip here, roll the upper arms, keeping so let's start with the right hand, rolling the right upper arm in from the back armpit, rolling down, bringing the upper arms closer, drawing the shoulder blades into the back. So this is basically opening the chest. And then you can change, again, holding, rolling the upper arms, bringing that back armpit forward, stretching down from the shoulders into the arms, working your arms as close as possible, the shoulders moving in, the outer shoulder blades going back, the shoulder blades moving into the back. Then relax. You can also hold both ways. So we hold here. So now rolling the outer shoulders, moving from the shoulder to the upper arm, making your biceps long and working on bringing the hands closer. Of course, if you're tighter, you might be holding closer to the forearm, but you're working on really taking the shoulders back and working the shoulder blades closer towards the spine. Now relax. And the next is Paschima Namaskarasana, which is Namaskarasana is this way. So here we take the hands from behind. So you can climb your hands. You can start at the lower part of this torso and then working from the elbows, moving into the forearms. That means from the elbows, you move in the direction of the forearms, and then you see how far your hands can go up. Again, it's quite an intense work in terms of shoulder mobility. So be patient, working on it. There are many tight group of muscles like these here, so which hold us. So here's your chance to actually work on stretching your collarbones, moving the shoulders back. And then after you've positioned your shoulders back, you can move from the shoulders to the elbows and then from the elbows to the forearms. So it's a progressive work for sure. Bit by bit, as we open the shoulders, our chest opens, and of course, one side might have a bit more freedom than the other. So it's a question of equalizing, becoming more symmetrical as best as possible. And now relax and let the hands go. And then let's go for Vrksasana. You already know that you can use a wall in any way if you need to. You can step back, use the wall as your behind you. And you can simply lift your right leg up, placing your foot against the wall, your bottom, your head against the wall, focusing on bringing the hip in, seeing that your weight is on the inner leg, not hanging out as we often can tend to, moving the outer hips down, the right buttock down, the thigh rolling down, and moving the right knee downward away from the hips in order to levelize our pelvis. And then you can use the wall so you're not so concerned about the balance, to be more focused on your alignment as you stretch your arms, maintaining this. And then maybe if you find you're getting a little bit more balanced, you can simply move yourself away from the wall and be in the pose. And then when you find you're getting a little disbalanced, you can go back to the wall. So that's one way of practicing. And then take your hands down. And then if you feel confident enough that, yes, you are okay in terms of standing, and again, balancing poses are good for us. It helps us to become more, as we were just saying, to make the body symmetrical. That means we have to work both the right and the left side of the body. And when we start to do balancing poses, it immediately puts us and becomes more aware how uneven sometimes our body can be. So this is where our regular practice actually helps us to bring more symmetry into our body in terms of strength, in terms of flexibility, because you might always find that you're very stable on one leg and quite unstable on the other one. So through practice, we become better. So once more, outer hips in, your weight is on the inner ankle. You're moving from the knee down, moving the knee back, but not letting that hip come forward. Then maintaining this, reach up with the arms, keep extending the arms and look straight, standing on your right heel, extending your left knee down. Vrksasana. Now slowly release, bring your hands down, take the foot down. Standing tall, and of course, by now you should be knowing one or two of the poses that we do one after another. That is kind of the sequencing concept, which is very much there in Iyengar Yoga. So what do you think comes next? Actually, it's Utkatasana. So Utkatasana is also a good preparation pose because it tells us this two modes of movement. That means everything from the top of the pelvis is lifting up. Yeah, so you're lifting your waistline, your lower spine, your side chest, your upper spine, your arms, and your head. And against that, you're moving the pelvis down. So there are these two oppositional forces. The pelvis is going down. At the same time, we also have to remember that how our legs have to fit into the outer hips. So moving the knees into the hip joint, maintaining the lift and lowering your hips down. We want to shift our weight more to the heels rather than fall on the toes. So it's extending upward and going down at the same time. Keep your arms in line with your head. Inhale and come up. Utkatasana, bring your hands down. From Utkatasana, we move to Trikonasana. Bring your hands in the center. Bend your knees. Jump and spread your legs out. Stretch your arms out from the center of the chest. Turn your right leg out. Turn your left foot. Just actually keep it stable, just pointing straight, more in a Tadasana action. Stretch your arms out from the center of the chest, keeping your left thigh firm. Take a deep inhale, extending both sides of the torso, going down to Trikonasana. Turn your abdomen, turn your chest, turn your head if you don't have any stress on your neck. See that your right shoulder stays closer to the back, not coming forward. Lift the left side of the chest up. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in. Turn your left leg out completely. Remember to turn the knee, the thigh. Stamp the outer edge of your right heel, equally spread through the center of the chest. Take a deep inhale, elongating the left side of your torso, going down, holding the leg, using the right upper arm to lift the right side of the chest, making sure both your shoulder blades are into the back. Turning from the chest, press into your right heel, lift your right inner knee, and if you're okay, no dizziness or neck issue, you may turn your head to look up towards the fingertips. Utthita Trikonasana on the left side. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in and jump and come back to the center. Next, we go for Virabhadrasana 2. Shoulders back. Bring your hands in the center. Bend your knees. Jump and spread your legs out. These are the base movements to help us to open the hips, stretch from the center of the chest, and definitely get us stronger in the arms and legs. Turn your right leg out again. Stamp the outer edge of your left heel. Keep your hips level. Begin to bend your front leg, lowering your hip down, remembering to take your right inner knee to the outer knee, right hip in, turning from the right side of the waistline to the left, stamping the left leg. As you evenly stretch both sides of your torso, turn to look towards your right fingertips. Again, extending, lowering your hips down, working your openness. Watch your right inner knee, keep it back, right outer hip in. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in. Once more, toes are in line. Reset them. Keep your upper arms working. Turn your left leg out completely. Stamp the outer edge of your right heel. Keep your outer hips in. Keep that compactness of the hips. You know how we draw the outer thigh bones in. Yeah, this is this loose kind of unconscious body. So here you can see a shortening that is happening and a looseness on this aspect of the body. So we have to bring in tone into this aspect. So you have to draw that left hip in. Move that right hip in as well. So there's a compactness. Lift both sides of the waistline with your awareness. And now maintaining the compactness, going down from the pelvis. As you go down from the pelvis, watch your left inner knee. Move it from the inside to the outside. Left outer hip in. Turn from the left side of the waistline to the right. Lift both sides of the waistline. Keep the right heel firm. And now turn to look towards your fingertips. Again, as you stretch your arms evenly, note that the weight is heavy on the heels. You're not falling too far into the left toes. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in, jump and walk your legs back and come back into Samasthiti, once more. Shoulders back, lifting the front armpit chest, taking the outer shoulders back, elbows tight, extending through the fingers. Take a couple of recovery breaths, and then we go for Utthita Trikonasana. So bring your hands in the center, bend your knees, jump and spread your legs out. Bring your blocks close by so it's within reach. Spread your arms from the center of the chest. Turn your right leg out. Stamp the outer edge of your left heel. See that the left inner ankle is lifting. And the weight of your body should be from the heel. So that means if you take your thigh forward, we are already forward with our hips, causing a kind of compression here. This is what we've been learning. You have to work from that ankle joint. If you move it back, you lift your inner knee and you keep this thigh back, you can secure the hip in place. And that's the point. We have to begin to bend our leg as we secure our hips in place. At the same time, there might be tightness, which is causing these to happen. So this is where you have to work by lifting the inner groins, moving them back, moving the knee back, and extending the whole right side of the body, placing your hand wherever it's right for you. It could be higher or lower. It should be in a position where you can move your right knee back. You can access your right hip, lift that right hip, turn from the right side of the waistline to the left, and then stretch your arm up. Of course, if you have more openness, you might find you're able to go down deeper into the position of still not collapsing the hip. So this is the collapsed hip. You want that right hip to lift. You want that knee to fit into the joint so that you can extend. So you can raise your arm to get that connection point. Keep your left leg very strong. Turn the left side of your chest. Reach with the left fingertips. Use the top left arm. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in. Extend both sides of the arms equally. Turn your left leg out completely. Stamp the outer edges of the heel. Again, maintaining a compactness of the hips. Begin to bend your left leg. As you bend your left leg, keep the left inner knee back. Left hip in. Elongate the left side of the torso long. Go down from the pelvis. You can again, remember, you can place your hand here. You can have the block higher. You want to access that the knee holds the hip. The knee goes back. The ankle lifts. The hip turns. The chest turns. And you can stretch your arm long. You want both sides of your waistline even. Your legs to hold your pelvis. If you're going deeper into the pose, you have to see that you're still able to maintain this lifting of the pelvis, the knee back, and turning from the left side of the chest to the right. Stretch your right arm long. Make your right knee firm. Press into the outer edge of your right heel. Now use the top arm. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in, jump, and come back to standing. So pause here for a few moments, taking the outer shoulders back. Again, we worked on most of the poses in the hip opening, the external rotation of the femur. Yeah, so this is our thigh bone. This is our hip socket. When we mean external rotation, which means we have to pull that into the joint, and along that we are moving our knee this direction. Now, of course, there's tightness. So you have to see that your hip is not one turning. Your hip is the stable part and it's the leg that is turning, right? So this is the external rotation. And that's true of all the previous poses we did. So you see my hip is forward. I draw the thigh into the hip by gripping here. The hip is, and I'm turning my knee. So all these poses, Virabhadrasana, Virabhadrasana 1, Vrksasana. It's the pelvis that remains. It's the thigh that turns, right? Same thinking. Now we are going to go for the internal rotation of the thigh. So that means there is a movement in this way. That's what Virabhadrasana 1 is about. So if you consider that, when you're standing tall, you have your feet spread open well, bring your hands in the center, bend your knees and jump and spread your legs out. So of course, we rotate our upper arms, we lift up, stretch the upper arms. Now we are turning ourselves to the right side. So first we have to internally rotate our left foot. That means the left foot has turned. It's an internal rotation. You know, outside, that was external. Now the hip, the thigh is learning to turn internally. So it's turning inward. At the same time, you have to see that the leg remains straight and not falling into the joint. It has to stay more in the socket. That means you have to keep your thigh bone back and turn it. Now, maintaining this, the thigh is what is creating the turn. The hip is turning because the thigh is turning the hip. At the same time, you have to watch your your right leg as you press your foot and see that the thigh also pulls into this hip joint. So again, it's the pelvis that is carried along with the help of the legs as you lower your pelvis down. Yeah, so you see it's not going away. The leg is fitting, the leg is fitting, and then you're turning your pelvis, you're turning your chest, and you're reaching your arms up. So that's Virabhadrasana 1. The legs have to work to hold the pelvis and revolve it. Inhale and come up. Relax your hands down for a moment. Once more, the toes are pointing straight. Focus your attention. Again, thighs into the hip socket, inner thighs back, front hip bones lifting. Spread your arms out from the center of the chest. Rotate your upper arms. With an inhalation, go ahead and lift and stretch your arms up. Lift up, stretch up. Now turning yourself to the left side. So you're going to, of course, internally turn your right foot. So you turn your foot in. You have to see that the leg is firm into the joint of your hip. And then that's what turns the hip, because the leg is holding the hip as it's turning. Then, of course, you're turning your left knee. And again, the leg is holding the hip in place. So this hip is collapsed. But if I draw the thigh in, the hip stays lifted. And it's like the legs are holding the hip as you create this rotation. And then we begin to bend our leg. So you have to see that the knee holds back, outer hip stays in, working the legs, turning your chest, and descending your pelvis down. You have to make your legs work by taking your attention to the right inner knee, lifting it up, turning the muscle from the inside to the outside, turning your abdomen, chest, and reaching up with the arms. Like in Utkatasana, the upper body is going down, the lower body is descending. Upper body is going up and the hips are coming down. Inhale and come up. Turn your chest, turn your feet, jump, and come back into standing. Take a couple of breaths. Once more, outer shoulders back, upper arms long, extending all the way to the fingers. Next, we go for Ardha Chandrasana. So again, I'm just going to move a little bit to the side so I can easily explain the pose. So starting with the right side, you position yourself, bring your hands on the center of the chest, jump and spread your legs out, stretching your arms. We've learned Trikonasana, so you turn your right leg out, take your hand down. If you can touch the floor, you can place your hand on the floor. Otherwise, you know you have to use the block. Now, when you bend your leg and you decide to take your hand across, same thing. You have to move from the inner knee to the outer knee. See that this leg is into the hip. So when we straighten, it's also about this leg stuck on the hip, and then the leg lifts. And as your leg lifts, you have to again pay attention to the pelvis. This weight is on the inside edge of your right ankle. Your left inner leg should become longer. Your left outer hip is firm as you turn your chest and reach your arms straight up. So the torso goes down, but the leg lifts and extends. Stretch your inner legs long. Now bend your leg. Inhale and come up. And I'm just going to shift a little bit to the side so I can do the other side. So spreading the legs in Trikonasana, stretching your arms out, turning your left leg out, keeping the hips compact, going down to Trikonasana. From Trikonasana, bending the leg, making sure the knee and the hip are in line, placing your hands in front. You have to shift your right leg closer. Make sure your left hand is underneath the shoulder, so it lifts that left shoulder up. Your left knee lifts the left hip up as you start to straighten your right leg. Stretch from the right inner leg, inner heel. As you straighten, keep the weight on the inside edge of your left ankle. Stretch your right upper arm. Tighten, extending the buttocks towards the heels. Make your legs straight, arms straight. Turning your chest. Ardha Chandrasana on the left side. Now bend your leg, lower the foot, and inhale and come up. Turn your toes in, jump, and walk your legs back. Once more, stabilizing yourself, standing in Samasthiti. Now from here, we are going to go for Paschimottanasana. So let's do the one with the hands at the back in Paschima Namaskarasana. If you cannot do this, then you can also hold this way. Yeah, so you can hold just your elbows or even keep your hands on the hips. So Paschimottanasana, let's bring our hands in the center, bend our knees, jump, spread your legs out. Usual distance of standing poses. This is also an internal rotation of the legs. I'm going to keep my hands in Paschima Namaskarasana. So again, pressing the palms into each other, lifting the armpits, shoulders back, moving from the shoulders to the elbows, elbows to the forearms. Turning myself to the right side, so I can turn my right leg out completely, turn the left foot in internally, and then keeping the hips compact, revolving the back of the thigh, the chest, the pelvis. Also, the abdomen has to turn more towards your right side. The left abdomen turns, the left leg stays firm as you keep your hips level, keeping the front hip bones long, going down, looking forward. Again, it's a question of lowering down from the pelvis, gazing towards the big toe. Keep your hips compacted. Keep the right hip lifted. Roll the left buttock forward, right hip back as you take your chest down. Here we have the hands also in Paschima Namaskarasana. So you have to lift the shoulders, move that sternum forward, layering your chest down. Keep both legs straight. Now inhale and come up. Turn your toes in. Once more, pressing the palms into each other, spreading the collarbones, seeing that your feet are equally placed, even. Turning to our left, turn your entire left leg out. Keep that left outer hip in, left knee tight. Turn your right toes in. You have to turn that foot enough so that you can keep that left hip in, keeping the pelvis rotating. Make your right thigh firm. Don't let your right thigh drop. The whole muscle has to lift to the hip to keep the hip upward. And it's this lifting of the hip upward which helps us to go forward rather than letting the front hip collapse. Keep going forward with the hips. Keep the legs stable. Gaze towards your big toe. Now we also have to add the turn where we turn from the right side of the abdomen to the left, keeping our left outer hip in, going down, keeping the front ribs long, sternum forward. Now go to the shoulders, shoulders back. Maybe I lost my arms, so I have to make sure my dorsal stays in, and then finally the head goes down. legs firm. Now look up, keep the legs firm. Inhale and come up. Turn your toes in. Take your arms out, jump, and come back to standing. Shoulders back, elbows straight. Vrksasana, Paschimottanasana. Bring your hands in the center, jump, and spread your legs out. Toes pointing straight, stretching your arms, stamping the outer edges of the heels. Keep the outer hips firm, inner thighs, inner knees lifting as you go forward from the chest. At first, stay in the concave back position. Your hands are underneath the shoulders. You're rotating your upper arms, shoulder blades moving in. Keep the lift of the inner knees. Walk your hands closer in line with your feet if you're able to do that. Bend your elbows, letting the crown of your head go down, spreading the ribs. As you walk your hands in line with your feet, observe that your inner knees are lifting, your outer edges of the heels are firmly pressing down. Your hands will remain the same, as wide as your shoulders, but you can bring your outer elbows in, move from the elbows, inner elbows to the inner shoulders, lifting the shoulders but letting the crown of the head go down. You can walk your head more if it's possible, your hands closer, so the lift of the shoulders remain and the legs are firm. Vrksasana, Paschimottanasana. Now inhale and come up. Bring your hands forward. Walk your feet in, pressing into the outer edges of the heels. Come up into standing. Now we are going to go for Uttanasana. So bring your hands and come back to standing. So I'll show you the side view. So you can, if you are more open, you can keep your feet together. Otherwise, you can also have your feet hip distance apart. You can use blocks. You can place your hands on the chair. All that is depending on what you need. What's important is, again, we keep our leg, the thigh bones, this femur head has to go into the joint. That's important. And learning to keep the frontal thigh bones back, but letting your sitting bones come forward. So there's a resistance and the sitting bones come forward. Don't throw your hip back too much. And then once you're there in the pose, you place your hands. Of course, if you're tighter, initially you might be with your hips back, but then try, once you've got that, to see if you can move your sitting bones forward, lift the sitting bones up from the buttocks. You're going down towards the head. This is the movement. And of course, because we are tight, we can get pulled in different ways, especially this region is what keeps us, right? There's a tightness in the sacrum, tightness on the hips. So you have to patiently work on that area, lifting the thighs up, elongating your torso, falling forward. The more you make your quadriceps tight, these muscles will open. Especially, your mind will not let go of this if there is no support here. So it's very important that we tighten our thighs, we move the quadriceps to touch the hamstring muscle, and then we can move these, spread the muscles at the back of the legs, rather than create a pulling action here, which can cause a lot of injury. So you have to be patient and you have to observe and understand your body to slowly opening your hips, elongating the torso, tightening the thighs, because then there's also all these areas that need to release for you to release your head down, spine down more and more. So working from the root. So especially a lot of people are kind of more interested in taking their head and hands down. But if you're very tight here and you're just pushing from this region, it's causing a lot of tension, and you over time, you never change this part of the back, which is why it's better, as always, to stay here. It's an equal Uttanasana, elongation of the spine, right? So we also know that is true of forward bends. So now we are going to go for Patanjali. So you can place your first 2 fingers here. You can use a belt. You know that way too. Pressing into the big toes, upper arms tight, rolling the inner upper arms, lengthening the torso. Let me just show you, because maybe you're not going to go back and see a video exactly, so it doesn't help for me to say you know that. Maybe first time you're watching this. So I place my belt on my big toes, so then I can stay long. So again, whether I'm tight, more tight on the hamstrings, my back, I can work on the extension, teach my legs to become straight, lengthening the spine. Yeah, so that is also okay. And of course, if you are more open, you can grip and create the same movement. If you're able to go down, you keep your legs tight, abdomen long, spreading, moving from the buttocks, waistline, chest, and keeping the knees firm. Now inhale and come up. Bring your hands on the hip and come up into an upright position. Okay, so now we are going to do one Urdhva Svanasana, and then we are going to do guess what? We are going to do Surya Namaskar. So we haven't actually done Surya Namaskar all this time, and that's because we have been progressively just learning the asanas first individually so that we can string them together to do the Surya Namaskar. So I'm just going to adjust my mat again. So first, let's do an Urdhva Svanasana. So stand with your feet together, taking your shoulders back, reach your arms up, elongating the arms, place the hands on the mat, big step back with your legs. Again, you have a quick look to see that the weight is on the index finger thumb. Lift your wrist, lift your bottom elbow. See that your upper arms are lifted, your outer shoulders are going down. Move the shoulder blades in. Now use the strength of the arms to move, stretch the sides of the body, the thighs back, the outer hips back. As you're in the pose, lift your thighs up so you can move the outer hips back. Look at your inner ankles, lift them, lift your inner knees, and stretch your calf muscle down. Urdhva Svanasana. Now look forward, walk forward, and come up to the top of the mat. So I will do a slow version of Surya Namaskar, and then from there we are going to do 2 slightly quicker. Okay, so you can start. The first one, you stand in Samasthiti and you put your hands in Namaskarasana. Then from Namaskarasana, you reach your arms up to Urdhva Hastasana. Then from Urdhva Hastasana, we keep our legs straight, begin to extend our torso as we go down and place our hands down, staying in Uttanasana. So you're in Uttanasana. Of course, you can use a block or anything else as you need. Then spreading your hands, you walk your legs back, coming into Urdhva Svanasana. And then from Urdhva Svanasana, you're going to go for Urdhva Svanasana, which is also something we have learned. Remember to use the legs. Now from Urdhva Svanasana, we've done Chaturanga Dandasana. Remember the abdomen in. That abdomen in is the support which lets you take your chest down. You have to keep this firm. And then from here, you come up to Urdhva Mukha again, keeping your legs firm, lifting the inner knees, lifting the thighs, and then back to Urdhva Svanasana. Arms straight, legs straight, look forward, walk forward. Uttanasana. Reach your arms, Urdhva Hastasana, and bring your hands back, Namaskarasana, and then Samasthiti. Now, maybe for some of you, this is easy. But one of the things with Iyengar Yoga, it is quite inclusive. And supposing you are unable to touch the floor, if you have any wrist problem, putting weight so much on the arms is difficult. I'm going to also show you a version with a chair so you can do this, right? So I'm going to get a chair. So you can also do the whole thing with the chair, meaning you stand in front of the chair like you're doing Samasthiti. Bring your hands at the center, Namaskarasana. Reaching your arms up, Urdhva Hastasana. Taking your arms forward, Uttanasana. So you're in Uttanasana. Maybe you can go down to whatever is possible for you. Then from Uttanasana, you can walk back to Adhomukha Svanasana. So this could be a variation of your Adhomukha Svanasana. You're stretching your hips, your hands are up, your elbows are lifted. Now from here, you can go directly to Urdhva Svanasana. You lift your heels up, you look forward, you pressurize your hand, you move your hips in the direction of the chair. As you move your hips in the direction of the chair, you have to lift your inner knees, shoulders back. So that's Urdhva Svanasana. Now, what about Chaturanga? Here too, you can do Chaturanga. If it's not possible, you have to bring your elbows back, you lower your chest. So you're in Chaturanga Dandasana, not so much weight on the legs, on the hands, your legs can work. And then you can again lift yourself up into Urdhva Svanasana, keeping the legs firm and then moving your hips back to Adhomukha Svanasana. So you can still do a whole sun salutation using the help of the chair, stretching your arms and then walking forward. As you come forward, you can be in Uttanasana. And then from Uttanasana, you can reach your arms up, lift yourself up to Urdhva Hastasana, bring your hands back to Namaskarasana, and then hands alongside the body in Samasthiti, right? So that is also another variation. Now let's do one without anything. So let's do one without the chair, just standing with the feet together. So you have an option. Of course, you can continue for joining me with the chair. Hands at the center of the chest, Namaskarasana, arms up, Urdhva Hastasana, elongating the torso forward, Uttanasana, taking the legs back, Adhomukha Svanasana, Urdhva Svanasana, Chaturanga Dandasana, Urdhva Svanasana, Adhomukha Svanasana, Uttanasana, Urdhva Hastasana, Namaskarasana, and Samasthiti. Okay, so now that is the Iyengar way of doing sun salutations. So now that is also something we have learned. Okay, so let us settle ourselves back, coming into a normal position, and let's bring ourselves down to a few of the seated poses. So again, you may use a block and let us sit in Vrksasana. Vrksasana is also a good counter pose for all those standing poses because we make our thighs work a lot, but now it stretches the thighs, the quadricep muscles. So press the tops of the feet down, lift the sides of the chest, taking a couple of breaths here, sitting in Vrksasana. Remember in Vrksasana, the outer shin bones, you want to draw the ankles in, the outer shins in, stretching your shin bones long. So the lower leg matters a lot. So you can't have your feet out like this. You definitely have to see that the top of the foot, the metatarsals are stretching back. Have a quick look, watch your feet to see your toes are pressing evenly onto the surface of the mat because all these things have a reaction on the hip. As you press the shin bones down, press the outer hips down, lift the lower abdomen, lift the armpit chest, sitting in Vrksasana. And then we do Parvatasana and Virasana. So again, stretching our spine. Stretch your arms straight, right thumb on top of the left, interlacing the hands, spreading the palms, outer elbows firm. With an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms. Again, lift the armpit chest, roll the outer shoulders, stretch your forearms, lift the sides of the abdomen up. Bring your hands down, change. Left thumb comes on top. Once more, interlacing the hands, keeping the elbows tight, upper arms tight. With an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms. Lift both sides of the abdomen, elbows. Keep pressing the tops of the feet down. Upper arms go back. Shoulder blades move in. Now release and bring your hands down. Actually, there's another pose we are doing in this sequence, which I forgot to mention at the introduction, and that is Parighasana. So Parighasana is also a standing pose. However, here we are on our knees, and it's kind of related a little bit to our shin bone activation, which you just felt. So let me show the pose to you. So Parighasana is also good in lateral extension of the spine. So it's a good idea to sometimes put a blanket so you don't apply too much pressure on the knees. So you can keep your blanket and you can position yourself so your knees are closed, your feet are closed. It's a Tarasana of sorts, except this time you are standing on your knees. In terms of the feet, I'm just turning sideways so you can observe. You have to make an effort to really stretch the top of your shin down and press it down. Keep the weight on the little toe side and keep the outer shins in. So this lower leg extension is important. It's similar to Virasana rather than here, because then the weight goes all the way to the knee. However, when we stretch our shin, you will feel the back of your thighs become much more alert, more conscious, and this action gives us support on this back area of the thigh. So it helps us to also lift our pelvis well. So let's do the pose, Parighasana. So you join your knees, stretch your shins, keeping your outer hips in. And then from here, you're going to take your right leg out, first seeing that your heel and your knee is in the same line. Then from here, you can stretch your leg straight. There are a few foot positions you can have. At the beginning, when you're starting out, it's good to have the toes up. So you can, again, focus on the outer hips in, the thighs in, the lift the chest, and the lift of the chest. Then you stretch your arms, maintaining this. We are turning from the right waistline to the left. So we have tried to turn our chest, our ribs in this direction, and then you take your hand down. First, we'll do with the more extended version of the pose. Of course, in this pose, you can go lower, but you have to see that you're not hanging into the hip this way. You're drawing the outer hips in, you're lifting your inner thighs up, and then you're stretching your spine, extending as far as possible. You can move your arms down more and more as you extend your spine, and later this pose is in this way. But at the same time, you have to turn your chest, legs firm, stretching both sides of the torso long. Yeah, so it's the extension of both sides of the torso, which helps in this pose. That's Parighasana. Now coming up, bring your hands down and let's do the other side. So join your knees again, get your outer hip bones in, lift the side chest, spread the collarbones, take your left leg out, your heel is in line with the knee, then you straighten your leg, you have the toes up, you get your outer hips in, thighs descending down. Now stretch your arms from your left hip, lift from the left waistline, turn to the right, keeping the left buttock in. Maintaining this, you're going down to your left side. As you reach your right upper arm, rotate it and stretching your spine. The right thigh shouldn't go back, lifts up, so you extend the spine. Then, of course, if you can go lower, maintaining this, extending your arm, and you work on drawing the hands in. It's hard on the chest You can see how my chest is collapsing, but it's the work of working, extending, trying to stretch your arms long, making both sides of the body even, hips in, and then inhale and come up. Okay, that was Parighasana. Then bring your hands on the hip, bring your knees back, and then pause here for a moment. Normal soft inhale and exhale. Now from here, we are going to go for Sirsasana. So Salamba Sirsasana. I'm going to do one today against the wall so that you have both. You know you can do it free, but I think a lot of people perhaps at this stage are also unable to do it from the floor. It depends. So if you're going to the wall, I'm going to keep my blanket. So my head is on a softer surface. I put my blanket against the wall. I put my knuckles into the wall, interlacing the hands, pressing the forearms equally, placing the crown of my head, seeing that the weight is on the inner elbows. Again, walking my legs in. As I walk my legs in, one way is to stretch your legs up, and you can bend your other leg and take it up. If you can go with both legs straight, that's also good. One of the good things about doing it against the wall is we can start to lean, but if you press your heels, you try to get your big toes close together so the thighs roll in. Don't let your legs roll out to the side. It's better to keep the big toes connected so that you can spread the buttocks, move the tailbone in, move the buttock away from the wall, equally press your forearms, lifting the inner shoulders up and staying in the pose. Sirsasana, Salamba Sirsasana, slowly working it so that we become more stable. As you're in the pose, also try to look at one point. Don't keep turning your head around. Equally lift your right shoulder, left shoulder. Press your right forearm, left forearm. Outer hips in, inner legs long. Keep your heels connected to the wall. So the more you dig your heels against the wall, you'll feel the legs activate. And you can really work on making your legs stronger and stronger in the pose. And then if you want to try to come off the wall, this is a good way. Try to move your thighs away from the wall and be here. You can also try moving both your thighs away from the wall. So that way you become stronger. And then after you felt it's collapsing, you can go back to the wall. So this way you can practice. Now slowly bring your legs down and rest. So you can just simply rest in Uttanasana, which is this way. So any tension in your neck and head is released. Or you can also rest in Adho-Mukha Virasana. Now inhale and come up. Now we continue on with some of our seated poses. And we are also going to do, I think I've already showed it in one of the previous videos, Bharadvajasana on the chair. But we are also going to do Bharadvajasana on a chair today. So I'm going to get my yoga chair. And there are many ways to do the pose. However, one way is this. If you have a yoga chair, then you can easily sit through, right? And if you want a little bit more height, you can have a folded blanket. You can place your blanket as a seat. The block use is also quite favorable because it helps you to keep track that your knees are not moving. So I'll explain that. So we're doing Bharadvajasana on the chair. It's a very good pose, especially for people who cannot do the pose from the floor and they have any knee issue. but this is good in terms of the spine. So I can put the block and I can hold the block in between my knees and keeping the legs quite stable. And here you'll be able to see again how there's a tendency for us to turn from the hip, but because I have the block, I can be quite sure that I'm not turning from the hip, or I can track it. So first we are turning to the right side. So you're going to take your hand on the chair. You can take your right hand back. You can hold the back seat of the chair and use the chair to lift your spine up. See that the knees are squeezing the block, and then you're going to turn from your left side of the abdomen to the right. The left armpit comes across and you're turning your chest as you're doing Bharadvajasana seated on the chair. And occasionally you can look at your knees, squeeze, lift up and turn the abdomen, turn the chest. Now come back to the center and we do the other side. So this time take your left arm back, take hold of the back seat of the chair so your shoulders remain back, and then you can hold here. Again, you squeeze the block, see that the hip doesn't move, but you can turn from the right waistline to the left, turn from the right side of the chest to the left, creating more turning action of the rib cage. That means from the center, you have to revolve the ribs, moving them in the opposite direction, keeping the legs squeezing so you're not turning from your hip. Your hip remains, but you're creating a rotation of the ribs. Now slowly release and down. Okay, that was Bharadvajasana on the chair. Now we are continuing on with some of our seated poses. So let's come down to the floor and we can use the blanket and move our chair out for the moment. So we move on to some seated poses. Again, I'm going to keep a belt handy. So starting in Dandasana, you can use a blanket. So sitting once more, stretching your legs, joining your big toes, evenly pressing the inner thighs down, the outer thighs down, moving the outer hips down, placing your hands behind you, rolling the shoulders, lifting the lower back, lifting the side armpit chest, moving the back ribs into the body and extending your legs straight. Keep working your inner knees down, looking straight. Dandasana. It's the base of all our seated poses where the legs are straight, the outer hips are in, and we're working on pushing the inner thighs down. Now from here, we are going to go for Uttita Trikonasana. So I'm going to turn myself around. Again, you may use a blanket if you need, or just sit straight without any support. You have to take the right support that is relevant for you. Even sometimes a bolster is useful. So again, we stretch our legs, focus on pressing your inner knees down, both sides, stretch from the inner knee to the inner ankle. So make this lower leg longer and longer. Place your hands on the side. Usually we feel our feet are falling, our pelvis is dropping. This is why we have to hug the outer hips in. It's the same, the thigh fitting into the hip socket, which lifts the front pelvic bones up. As you extend your arms by pressing the hands down, shoulders back, lifting the waistline, work on stretching your inner legs, pressing the inner knees down. Press the center of your heel. See that you're not falling too much on either the inner or the outer legs. Look straight, observing the breath. Now from here, we are going to go for Padangushtasana, Upavista Konasana. So in a similar way, if you can reach with your fingers, you grab the big toes with your first two fingers, rotate your upper arms, lift the side chest up. So again, we are always trying to lift our abdomen up, chest up. your outer hip should be descending down. Your lower abdomen is lifting. The front ribs are lifting. And you're using the arms to lift the sides of the chest up. So Baddhanguliyasana, sternum lifting, not sinking. So this is the spine. Now, supposing you cannot grab your big toe, so you can use a belt. You can place the belt on the bottom of your feet this way, and you can still stay upright. So either way, you're working on pressing your thighs down. And the first thing we learned in Utkatasana, our hips were pressing down, our thighs are pressing down, but our lower waistline is lifting, the side armpit is lifting, and outer shoulders drawing down the back, lifting the sternum. Yeah, so this is the same thinking that we have to do, whether we hold our legs with our fingers or with the belt. The actions remain the same. So that's Padangushta Upavista Konasana. Now we move to Baddha Konasana. So again, a few of our seated poses. These are good in terms of knee joint, hip joint, ankle joint, and our modern lifestyle definitely makes these movements very difficult because most of the day we are sitting on chairs, and the more we don't do these movements, the more difficult it gets. And that also means over time, more injuries, more discomforts in the body. This region has a lot of important organs. And so if you don't move them in all kinds of ways, like the leg bones moving, affects the organs housed in this area. The circulation gets stuck. And so that's why we have to do these movements for the health of our internal organs as well. So learning to do them. Again, one of the great things about Iyengar Yoga is that supposing I cannot do it in this position, I can raise my hips higher, but I can still get the same movement to happen in my body. And that is something which I think Guruji was so innovative in terms of devising, that everybody, regardless of age, ability, can access these asanas and derive benefits from it. So Baddha Konasana. And then we are going to do Swastikasana. So let's bend. First, get your legs in Dandasana. Then you take your right leg, you cross at the shin, bringing it under your left thigh, and you bring the legs to cross higher at the shin. And again, because of our hip movement, sometimes it is not possible. So we end up more on the ankles because the hip cannot roll and go inward, right? So it's because of this movement. You might say, okay, I've got my ankles closed. But in time, it's this rotation of the thigh bone, allowing the knee to move in, that lets us cross closer at the shin. So this is a complex movement of the hip joint and the leg joint. But you have to sit higher so that you can cross deeper at the shin bone, because then you are compacting your pelvis and that's helping you lift up. Okay, so now change. And again, straightening your legs. Now let's do the other leg. So I bring my leg in. So it's a rotation. Yeah, so this is the rotation. As I stretch my knee forward in this direction, then I bring the leg in, then I cross at the shin. And the feet are a way to support my outer knees. So that is more at the shin bone. That is Swastikasana rather than at the ankles. And if it's not possible, you definitely need to sit higher. And then we can do Parvatasana in Swastikasana also. So stretch your hands, interlace the hands, turning the palms out, keeping the elbows straight. With an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms. Armpits extending, outer shoulders coming in, extending, reaching your arms back. And then bring your hands down, change, interlace changes, turning the palms out, elbows tight, With an inhalation, go ahead and stretch your arms, stretch your armpits, stretch your forearms, taking your upper arms back. And then release and take your hands down. Okay, so that's pretty good. And now we have two more seated poses. So Janu Sirsasana and Triangamukha Paschimottanasana. So you can use the height that is necessary for you. We start with our right leg bent. Start in Dandasana, both legs are straight. Pressing the thighs down. Bend your right leg. Keep the heel close to the groin, not letting the foot go under. Lift the chest. Stretch your arms up. Move the knee down and back. Turning your pelvis, turning your chest. Moving from the right side to the left. Go forward. Same thinking. Lifting the abdomen, lifting the chest. You can stay here. Or you can go down from the abdomen, down from the chest. And then your head down. Janu Sirsasana. Now inhale and come up. Straighten your legs in Dandasana. Bend your left leg. Keeping the heel close to the groin. Keep your right leg very straight. Again, moving the knee. As you reach with your arms, you're turning from the left side of the abdomen to the right. So the abdomen lines up over your right leg and the torso moves in the direction of the straight leg. So when you go, you create the rotation of the rib cage as you go forward. Once more, grabbing your feet, pressing your right thigh down, right inner knee long, lifting the torso, turning from the left side to the right, keeping the elbows firm as you go forward. Again, we have to pay attention to try and extend both sides of the torso. It requires attention, focus, and presence as we do the asanas. Now inhale and come up and stretch your legs straight. So as I said, we are doing Triangamukha Paschimottanasana. So that is where our right leg will be bent in Vrksasana. So this sometimes causes the hips to be uneven. So you can decide once you are in Vrksasana, if you're able to sit on the floor, that's okay. But most of us will find ourselves tilting. So in that sense, you will raise your pelvis up. So the foot is on the outside. So you have to sit in such a way so that your pelvis is equal. It's a bit like Bharadvajasana. Remember how we adjusted our pelvis to be equal and you have your legs straight. This is, in a sense, at one level easier than Janu Sirsasana because the hips are level already. But it's a much more difficult position of the knee, and many people perhaps cannot do this. And if you cannot fold your knee for any knee injury, then of course you can repeat the previous pose, Janu Sirsasana. Otherwise, you can lift your pelvis, reach your arms up, go forward from the abdomen. Your spine remains straight here, and you will find that you have a tendency to fall on that straight leg. So this is where you have to really descend the bent right hip down and lengthen the right waistline as you go forward. Gaze towards the front, towards the toes. Also keep your left outer hip in so your hips are compacted and you can go forward from the torso. Now come up. I turn around so you can see the leg also for the other side. So your legs are straight. You bend your left leg now. Keep the calf muscle rolling. Remember the shin bone. We've done Parighasana. We've done Vrksasana. This is the extension of the shin bone, which is important. Please don't be in this ankle because this affects our hip. You have to see there's a relationship in this and this outer hip. So to keep that outer hip in, you have to feel that your tops of the foot are straight. And again, you need to take enough height. If this is not happening, you're unable to straighten your foot, all these things need to be addressed in such a way that you can do the pose well. Get the clarity in your postures, your asanas, so that you can gain the most benefit out of your practice. So extending the shin bone, lifting the chest, lifting the waistline, and going forward, lengthening both sides of the torso, holding the feet, lifting the torso. And again, you may stay here if you're on the stiffer side. There's no need to go down. Keep the abdomen long. Only if you're able to go down, I'm just showing you the whole extent of the pose. Keep the upper arms long and going down from the pelvis. Here too, you find yourself leaning on the outer edge of your right heel. See that you keep the weight on the right inner heel so that the right outer hip stays in. And then you will find you're able to stabilize your left outer hip. Yeah, so this is how our hips pull us out. And this is a great chance to strengthen our hips. Now inhale and come up. Great. So I'm just looking at the sequence, which I have posted in front of me because I don't have that kind of a memory to remember 42 poses. Hopefully, if I keep practicing for a few lifetimes, I will. But our next pose is going to be Adho Mukha Upavista Konasana. So Adho Mukha Upavista Konasana means we are learning to take our head down. Adho Mukha is looking down. So we are going to go back to Upavista Konasana. So we are further increasing the mobility of the legs, the hips. We are spending a bit more time on the seated positions, as you can see, as we are coming into our week 17 of the practice. And so here too, you take your legs out wide. We already did Padangusthasana, Upavista Konasana. So you can keep your arms long, and this is another forward extension, but again, it's working from the hip. So you have to press down, you have to create the abdomen long. As you go down from the abdomen, go down from the chest, depending on where you can go, right? So if you have more mobility on the hips, you can go down all the way, but see that you're not rounding your back and going down this way. Yeah, so this is the rounded back. So you have to, again, like all forward bends, you have to keep your legs connected, abdomen long, front ribs long. And if that means you need to stay higher, please do so. Sometimes we even work with the chair. So you have your head resting on the chair, your thighs are working and you're lifting. Or if you have a block, you can place your head on the block. Or if you have more mobility on the hips, then you can go down and let your head rest. Now pressing the legs down, lift your head up, inhale and come up. Okay, now we are going to do one Paschimottanasana. So these are more forward extensions. As you can see, we are going into this part where a lot of our poses is forward extension. So it becomes like a forward extension seated pose sequence. So working on pressing the thighs down, reaching our arms up, lengthening the torso, going forward from the pelvis, and staying in Paschimottanasana. Pressing your inner knees down, inner thighs down, lengthening the torso, quietening the mind. Now inhale and come up. And just so that we get a sense of quietness before we go into the next pose, you're going to do Supta Baddhanguliyasana before we do the finishing set of Salamba Sarvangasana, etc. So you may just lie down on your back. And be in Utthita Trikonasana. Let the mind settle. Keep the openness of the chest. Giving you a short recovery before we set up for Sarvangasana. Now slowly bring your knees in, and then you can roll to the side and come up. And I would suggest you go set up your blankets for Sarvangasana. So let us start with our Sarvangasana sequence. Again, these poses are to be regularly done, except when you're menstruating, of course. And it's very good for the system. So definitely start building your Sarvangasana practice. As you know, we started learning Sarvangasana quite early in our practice. So that might give you an idea of why it's such an important pose. So let's get ready. First, we are going to do Salamba Sarvangasana for a few moments. So you can put your belt. You've got the rotation, the extension, and then you place your hand on your back. Lift your back well, and then take your legs up one at a time and be in Sarvangasana. Keep your weight heavy on the elbows, tighten your knees, and the more height you take, it really is so much easier to stay in the pose. And since more benefit is gained from staying longer, it's worth investing on getting enough blankets and setting it up for yourself, for your body, in such a way that you can sustain holding the pose for longer periods of time. It has many benefits in terms of our immune health. Our immune system gets a workout, our lymph is replenished, the heart, circulation, the nervous system, the back of the head, the brain, so many benefits. In fact, there's a whole, if you go to Light on Yoga, there is a long write-up on the benefits of Sarvangasana and Sirsasana. So if there are just two poses that you must learn and make a part of your own practice, it would be Sarvangasana and Sirsasana. Now we are going to do Ekapada Sarvangasana. So keep your left leg very straight. Slowly take your right leg from the hip. We've worked a lot on this hip connection. So this thigh in the hip joint, the left leg straight, hips lifting. You can take your leg lower and lower, and especially if you cannot, you can bring that leg in a little bit forward, but don't throw it back. So your spine gets lifted, this back body is lifting. Keep your knees straight. And then maintaining the left leg strong, take your right leg up. And now focus your attention on your right foot. We can see our feet in Sarvangasana. Keep your right elbow firm. Make sure your right toes are turned in. Right leg straight, right outer hip in. And then you lower your left leg down. Straighten your left knee. Don't let your right leg go back. Yeah, you have to keep your right leg in, your right buttock in as you stretch your leg and allow that left leg to drop however much you can. But it's the leg that is lifting, that is keeping our spine long.
Now take your leg back up. Stay again for a few moments in Sarvangasana. Thighs tight, knees tight, shoulders in. Keep lifting your back. Outer hips in, inner knees extending to the inner heels. Now take your legs down in terms to the floor for Halasana. Stay in Halasana. You have to keep your legs lifting. Don't collapse your inner knees. Lift your inner knees, outer hips. Straighten your knees. Stretch your heels more. Keep lifting the shoulder blades. Let's keep the belt still because we're going to do a few more poses. Putting the shoulders, top of the shoulders pressing down. Lifting the back, keeping the shoulder blades in. Now we bend our knees to come to Karna Pindasana. The knees come on either side of the ears, lifting our back. And now you're going to straighten your legs and do Supta Konasana. So Supta Konasana is like Upavista Konasana in terms of our legs. So you are in Sarvangasana, but you stretch your legs. Again, your outer hip sockets have to be in and up. As you lift your inner knees, stretch your legs, lift your pelvis. Supta Konasana. Now slowly bring your legs back into Halasana. You can take your belt out. Hold your hips and gently come back out from there. And then you can just be here for a few moments. Now you can roll to the side and come up, and we can go for Paschimottanasana. We can use the height on because it helps in terms of a bit more lift of the pelvis. I'm also going to get a bolster so my head can rest. So I can bring my bolster. So you can sit on top of the blankets. So it already gives you a better folding capacity from the pelvis, especially if you're tighter and you're at the end of the class. You're doing it more as a resting position to quieten the brain. You can use your bolster higher. You can go forward and let your forehead rest, being in Paschimottanasana. Spread your back ribs. Press your inner knees down, inner thighs down. Move forward from the pelvis, move forward from the chest. And let your forehead rest. Now slowly inhale
and come up. And now we can set up for our Shavasana. So I'm using a blanket for my Shavasana, also a bolster. So it's nice sometimes when we have a little weight for our thighs. So I first stay with my knees bent. I can keep my bolster here on my legs, and I adjust my head in such a way so the blanket is just all the way to the top of my shoulders. I roll the outer shoulders, lengthen the sacrum, and then as I stretch my legs out one at a time, I can let the bolster just rest like a heavy weight on the thighs. It helps to quieten the legs so the abdomen can soften more. Then you can roll the upper arms and be quiet in Shavasana for a few moments. And especially if you have managed to do the whole sequence, then you definitely need a Shavasana. So relax your shoulders, your arms, your legs, keeping your abdomen soft, your throat soft. Completely letting go. Now slowly, at your own pace. First, you can gently open your eyes. Then bring your right hand, your left hand back on your abdomen. You can slightly bend your knees and move the bolster over to your left side. Then bend your knees completely. Reach your right arm long. Turn over to the right side. You can bend your right upper arm and just rest with your head here for a few moments. And then you can use your left hand pressing into the floor, rolling, coming up. And then taking a couple of breaths. Let's bring our hands at the center of the chest. May we all grow in our practice together. And may the teachings that Guruji and Gitaji have given us stay alive in all our lives for many, many years to come, bringing peace and well-being to all. Namaste. Thank you.